How much does a driving instructor earn, and what's it like? What's it like doing the job? In this video, I'm going to give you two examples, both are full-time. And by full-time, I mean 36 hours a week. Why 36 hours a week? Well, if you're a driving instructor doing 36 hours a week, you're probably in the car for 50 hours. That's 50 hours a week in the car. Now, if you want 2 days off, that's 5 10-hour days in the car, in a seat with a seatbelt on. That's about as much as many people can handle. The best I've been able to do is do about 8 paid for hours a day with 9.5 hours in the car. That's a good ratio, and that requires pupils to be close together, pupils to be near where I live, and me only doing 2-hour lessons, because if you do, say, 8 hours in a day, 2-hour lessons, that's 4 lessons. That's a lot less travelling time between those lessons than if you did 8 1-hour lessons in a day. That's a lot of travelling time. That makes it hard to earn money. Also, I'm going to do one instructor who works for a franchise, so they work for a school, a big school, and they pay their weekly fee, and one who is independent, who's able to get their own pupils. There are two main types of instructor. You have independent instructors like myself, who source their own pupils and source their own car, and franchisee instructors who pay a fee to a school, and in exchange they get pupils. If they pay extra, they can also sometimes get a car as well. It's all different deals out there. If they pay extra and get the car will come with dual controls, the signage on it most likely, and any L plates where needed on the roof or sometimes on the car. Different schools have different styles. All driving instructors though are self-employed, which means we take money from pupils, we have expenses, and we work out our profit loss and pay tax on that. We're not employees. At least in the UK, I don't know any instructor who is an employee who does their job, gets a salary or an hourly rate. Doesn't seem to work like that. Usually, new instructors join schools. That's how they start out. That way they can get pupils. They pay their fee in exchange for pupils, with the aim that one day they can become independent, so they don't have to pay the fee and they can source their own pupils. However, it doesn't always work like that. Some instructors stay working for schools for many years throughout their career simply because they like being part of the school. And other instructors like myself, I was never part of a school. I've always done this independently, and I was able to do that because I could do it part-time at first. I had one full-time job, and I did driving and instructing as a second income and built it up until I could go full-time. To be fair, driving schools don't only offer cars and pupils, but they do also give instructors support, which may be one of the reasons why instructors do stay with them for so long, even when they've been doing the job long enough where they could be able to get their own pupils. So, first example, driving instructor working for a school, paying £200 a week for pupils and a car and support. £200 a week is neither really cheap or expensive. It's about average of what a driving instructor would pay for that kind of service. That works out at £10,000 a year, because schools rarely charge for 52 weeks of the year. They only normally charge for 50 weeks of the year. They give you 2 weeks off, 2 weeks holiday from your franchise fee. Fuel, that's your next biggest expense. Expect to be doing about 25,000 teaching miles and travelling miles to and from pupils per year if you're doing that many hours a week, 36 hours a week. You could be doing more, you could be doing less. It depends how far away your pupils are and what kind of area you're teaching in. 40 miles to the gallon is kind of respectable. This car does 33 miles to the gallon typically on lessons, but I could have a more efficient car. You're probably not going to get 50 to the gallon. There might be cars that do that when you're giving lessons, because your car gets far lower efficiency when you're teaching. If you're sitting in a car park with the engine running, air conditioning on, trying to teach someone how to reverse, well, fuel economy plummets because you're not really going anywhere. This car will do 50 miles to the gallon on a long run, but only 33. So 40 miles to the gallon, £1.35 per litre, works out at about 15 pence per mile, slightly more than that, with 25,000 teaching miles. Fuel cost of £3,750. Could be more, could be less. Next biggest expense is insurance. Now, that can be as long as a piece of string. However, usually I pay in the 300s. Last year was £365 and this year was £365 for all the insurance I need to teach, including off-road. I can teach over 15s, 15 and over off-road, and anyone over 25 with a clean license can drive my car with my permission. I've had it down to £287 in 2017, but I've never had it as cheap as that or cheaper than that in any other years. When I started out, my first policy, I think it was in 2009, I think that was around £500 mark. And I have heard of people paying a lot more, and inflation as well, that's a long time ago. So I'm going to go with £500 for insurance to try and give an average figure. Might be more, might be less. And then your green badge. You have to pay for your green badge. When you become a driving instructor, you get your ADI green badge that you put in your window to say it's legal for you to charge for lessons. Anyone can sit in a car and teach someone to drive, but if you want to charge for lessons, you have to have your green badge, which is your approved driving instructor badge, ADI, or your PDI, potential driving instructor, which is the pinky coloured one, which means you can charge, but they're temporary whilst you're training. Also, the DVSA expect driving instructors to do 1 day of CPD a year. CPD stands for Continued Professional Development. I'm not going to put any cost for that because it's quite easy to get that for free or near enough free. Just turn up to a few meetings where people are talking about driving, instructing, how the industry is changing and different techniques you can use, and that will cover it. Won't take long to get that 1 day of CPD per year, and that's actually voluntary. You don't have to do that. So we have a total for expenses of £14,325 if you're doing 36 hours a week at £28 an hour, 50 weeks of the year. Let's say you take 2 weeks off, so 50 weeks of the year, not 52. That is a turnover of £50,400. So you've got £50,400 in. Your expenses are £14,325, which leaves you with a taxable income of £36,075. Plus, of course, you've also got your car as a bonus that you can use personally. However, averaging 36 hours a week isn't easy. When I was full-time, I'm not full-time now because I do the videos as well, so I do driving instructing part-time. When I was full-time, I aimed for 40 hours a week, trying to guarantee 36 hours a week when I was budgeting, working out how much money I need to earn. And it's quite hard to average 36 hours a week because pupils do let you down, but more on that one later. Now for the independent instructor. Let's say they buy a new car every 3 years. Many instructors do. You don't have to. Keeping your car longer saves you a lot of money, or buying an older car will save you a lot of money. But this is based on a new car every 3 years, and you do about 90,000 miles in that car over the 3 years. There's still 25,000 miles teaching plus some personal mileage as well. I'm going to say £3,500 per year in depreciation is quite a fair figure. It could be a lot more than that, and it could be less depending on what car you buy. But let's say you buy something like this, or a Ford Focus or something, you're probably going to be looking at about £3,500 a year in depreciation. Then you're going to have to make sure it works. Now, it's quite easy these days to get a car with a warranty for up to about 100,000 miles. So let's say you don't have to pay for repairs, that's covered under warranty. I mean, this car had a warranty for 90,000 miles when I bought it. I did have to pay a bit extra to extend it when I bought it to get the 90,000 instead of the standard 60,000, but it was a genuine manufacturer's warranty, so you can do it. And Toyota offer a 100,000 mile warranty as standard, and Hyundai and Kia, there are some good warranties out there. Let's talk about tyres though. You still need to pay for tyres. £200 a year, say, for tyres. £200 a year for brakes. Doesn't mean that's how much it's going to cost you per year. You're going to have a bigger bill, and on 1 year you might not have any bill, but this is a conservative figure. Another £200 a year for your clutch. Let's say in those 90,000 miles you have to do one clutch, £600. So over 3 years, it's £200 per year. Dual controls, normally fitting and removal, you'll get that for about £600, £500 for the installation, and when you're finished with the car, £100 for them to remove it. So that's again £200 a year. There's 4 lots of £200 a year here. It is a ballpark figure, although the dual controls is quite accurate. Servicing, you're doing 30,000 miles a year. Let's say it's £400 a year in servicing. Let's say you're doing main dealer servicing. Probably is a bit less than that. Depends on what manufacturer of car you buy. If you buy a BMW, you're probably going to pay more for servicing than if you buy a Ford. But depends what deal you get. Again, there are good deals out there and servicing packages. I know BMW do actually do some quite good servicing packages themselves. But I'm going to go with £400 a year. Website. You're going to need a website if you're independent. I do it myself. It costs me a few quid a month to host it and pay for the domain. But obviously, if you can't do it yourself, you're going to need to find someone to do it for you, or have some sort of content managed system where you can log on and change it yourself. But it's probably better to pay someone to do a proper bespoke website, in my opinion. And I'm going to put £500 a year down for that. Now, it could be a lot more than that, it could be a lot less, but let's just go with that. Roof box. Well, my roof box, my L plate roof box thing that you put on the roof so people know you're a learner, you don't have to have one of those, you can just have L plates. I've only ever bought one, and it's the original one. I've had it for over 12 years, it was 100 quid. But let's say you're going to get a new one every 4 years or so. Let's put that down as £25 for your roof box. Signage, I don't actually recommend it. Putting signage on your car has never helped me. It's never actually got me any pupils. Some people like it, but I've not found it's given me any kind of success. I've not had success from it. It's just been annoying. It does make you stand out more though, which can be handy if you want to stand out as a learner when you're teaching. But let's go with £125 a year. For that, it's probably going to cost you £300 or £400 to have it done and remove it when you're finished with it. But let's split it down over 3 years, £125 a year. You've got to tax the vehicles, £155 typically per year now. And your fuel is going to be the same, £3,750. Insurance the same, £500. Your green badge, £75. All the same as what you would be if you were working for a school. A franchisee, not technically working for them, but working with them, should I say. Your total, as an independent instructor with a new car, every 3 years, dual controls, doing 25,000 teaching miles per year, servicing and everything, would be £9,830. Take that away from the £50,400 that you'd get from 36 hours of lessons a week, 50 weeks of the year, £28 per hour. You have a profit of £40,570. That's taxable income, which is £4,495 more than if you work with a school, which is why so many instructors want to be independent, because you can save quite a lot of money or earn more money. That's £4,500 basically. And if you were savvy with your car choice and you saved a lot of money on your car, you can save a lot more than that. For example, I've had this car for nearly 8 years. I bought it for £20,000. My depreciation is not going to be £3,500 a year, because that would mean, you know, it's only £20,000 to begin with. Even if it's worth nothing, it can't be that over 8 years. And I'll probably keep it longer than that. So it does depend on you, your choices for your car. But this is just a ballpark figure, so you can see the difference. But to earn that money, you have to be busy and do the hours. If you're not doing the hours, you're not going to earn the money, and your overheads, the depreciation of your car, is going to be similar. Now I'm going to talk about the downsides of this job. My least favourite thing about this job, or should I say the thing I dislike the most, is sitting down. Yes, sitting down as a driving instructor. 10 hours a day in a car when I was full-time. I know I'm not full-time now, it's better for my health, I get more exercise. 10 hours sitting in a car with a seatbelt on, you'll be surprised how little you move compared to even an office job, which is considered sedentary. How do you say that word? Sedentary, a fancy word for saying you don't move. Now, when I used to have an office job, I used to move about an awful lot more, pick up boxes, go to the photocopier, run up and down stairs, take deliveries, and it was quite an active office job, to be honest. I had overalls, I had a fleece, I had to go outside sometimes, and I had to get my hands dirty as well, because I did work for a heating and air conditioning company, but that was primarily a computer job. And in this job, I can go a whole day if I'm working full time, doing 8 hours of lessons, which is going to be over 9.5, 10 hours in the car, less than 500 steps. That's not healthy, which means to stay healthy, I have to put a lot of my personal time into exercise. So I try to find clever ways of doing that so it's not slogging it out at the gym. Like I like going for walks, I like tennis at the moment, trying to do sport, but you've got to be thinking about that. I think if you just sat in the car and didn't try to keep yourself fit, your health is going to go downhill quite quickly in this job, particularly if you're older. I started doing it when I was very young, 21. I'm now 34, but if I'd started when I was in my mid-40s, you don't get away with as much when you're older. So exercise, don't just sit down. You will. I'm noticing the difference when I don't do as much exercise. Next one. That was quite long, wasn't it? I did rant about that. Try and make this a bit more brief. Dealing with the public. If you've ever had a job where you have to deal with the public, everybody, anyone can use your service, you'll know that some people can be awkward. Most are fine, but every so often I get a pupil, I have to sit for a long time next to them, say a 2-hour lesson, and some of the things this person can say can be very mean. I don't want to give specifics or go into detail, but I'm sure you know what I mean. And I can be sitting there thinking, I don't want to be next to this person. I don't want to teach this person. And I struggle to teach people who I really dislike, particularly if they're saying some very horrible things about different people around us, for example. So these days, I've got plenty of demand. It's very easy for me to say, okay, and find my excuse not to give them a lesson. Next, pupils let you down and you can't win. So as I said, when I was full-time, I aimed for 40 hours a week, but I averaged about 36 hours a week. That's because people cancel. It's the same people that normally cancel. You get the ones who don't and the ones who do. And some can do it last minute. And that will cost you money, because that is time you could have been using to earn money, and they have basically taken that away from you. They've taken that ability away from you by not allowing you to book someone else in. They've taken a space but then not used it. A way around it is to charge before the lesson. I charge 48 hours before the lesson, so that if they cancel last minute, I have that money and it is my choice now whether or not I do charge them. But I feel bad when I charge them, so quite often I end up not charging them, or I just charge them half. I say, okay, well, you losing half, I'm losing half. We'll call that fair. But for the people who cancel all the time, in my opinion, you've got to let them go. I had an extreme case before the lockdowns who was cancelling every other week and sometimes 2 weeks in a row. He would pay, but I felt so bad for taking his money. I just couldn't give him lessons. I said to him, I know you're paying, but I can't win with you, because either I lose that time, which is valuable to me. I should be earning money during that time, not having this dead time that I can't do anything with because I've suddenly got 2 hours free with nothing to do. But then I hate taking the money from you as well and not giving you a lesson. So I had to let that pupil go for that reason. Because as I said, I couldn't win. I felt bad either way. You can't make a mistake as a driving instructor. If you're in your driving instructor car, people will pull you up on the slightest things, and people think there's so many rules that exist that don't exist. Like, you must have your hands at 10 to do. You don't need to have. You can't. Oh, you cry. Someone shout, you failed your test because you can't cross your arms. You can cross your arms. I steer how I want. Thank you very much. It gets a bit tiring after over a decade of it. I remember the most recent one when I was in Ipswich. Ipswich is the next town along, but I don't know Ipswich. I don't go there. I don't go to Ipswich or Chelmsford, which are the next towns either side of me. Or one's above, one's below, more like that, and either side, simply because what's there is in Colchester, so I don't have a reason to go there. I spend more time in Wales and the Lake District than I do there. Anyway, I was at a roundabout, I was in the wrong lane, realised I was in the wrong lane, quite late because I couldn't see the road markings until I got there. But when I went to go around the roundabout, I could see it safe for me to still take my exit from the wrong lane. So I did. Someone followed me. And when I parked up, then got out of the car and in a semi-violent way, then had a go at me saying that I should know better because I'm a driving instructor. That's kind of what I mean by a nasty piece of work. This guy really smelt bad as well. I don't think he'd cleaned in about a decade. Maybe, you know, a quick sweep around the edges, but not a proper clean. Keep your distance, please. I'm holding my breath. Let's move on. But that is actually a disadvantage. Doesn't happen often, but it is annoying when it does, because you know it wouldn't happen if you weren't in an instructor car. And I'm talking about things I dislike about the job, remember. I'm not trying to say it's a bad job. I've been doing it a long time, so I can't really complain. Boring car. You have to have a boring car. If you're a driving enthusiast, you don't want to be driving around in a Fiesta or a Corsa or this Leon. I mean, it's a great car. I really like this car, but there's lots of other flavours of car I would like to own. Bigger, smaller, but you can't because you're restricted. I do have 2 cars. I work quite hard to have 2 cars, and technically this car doesn't actually come out of my earnings because my earnings are after the costs of this car. So there is that advantage. One of the advantages, you have your pay, but then you get a car on top of that. So I can afford a second car that I actually enjoy and, well, aspire to own, I suppose. My opinion of what I enjoy is changing as I get older. I used to like power, lots of power, and now I'm more like lightweight, nimble, nice handling. Because you can't really use the power on the road anyway. It's just a bit frustrating having it and not being able to use it. Here's 2. No holiday pay, no sick pay. So if you want to go on holiday, you're going to have to lose money because you've got to take the time off work, so you're not going to get paid for it, and pay for the holiday. So it's kind of a double whammy. And the same with being sick. If you're sick, you kind of still want to go to work because you know you're not going to get any money if you don't. So it does encourage you to work when you're not feeling well. And in times like this, you don't want to be hearing that, do you? But yes, of course, no, if I've had symptoms, I have not been working. But before this whole situation, before this whole pandemic, I'd rarely ever take time off work. I did in February 2016 because I had the flu, and the flu knocks you out. I was like in bed for 3 days. But most minor problems I still just struggled through, which is a bit of a hard life, but in a way I suppose it's quite good, keeps you going. Sometimes you get better quicker when you're busy instead of just feeling sorry for myself. Another problem is, another thing I want to say about holiday pay as well, to give you an idea before I move on. I haven't actually had a 2-week holiday. I've taken 1 week off 2 times in the whole time I've been a driving instructor since 2009. I mainly just do long weekends. Maybe that needs to change because it's, as you start to get a bit older, you think, there's more to life than just working. This is probably my second biggest dislike that I have to deal with after sitting down, because I genuinely believe that is the worst thing about the job. Sitting down so long is just not good for you. But the public generally, so general public seem to think it takes about 20 hours to learn to drive, doesn't it? Tell me what you're doing if that's your average amount of time it takes you to teach a pupil. I even Googled it. When I was thinking about doing this video, I Googled how long does it take to learn to drive or something like that. I'll put it on your screen. I took a screenshot and the first thing I saw was 20 hours and I just chuckled. I had to make some kind of noise when I saw that, because it's like, it even says it there. But then I read further and it said like 20 hours of practice, but 45 hours of lessons, additional lessons or something like that. But actually, no, it shouldn't be said like that. It shouldn't be worded like that. It's 45 hours of lessons plus 20 hours of supervised practice in your own car, which is actually probably about the average, to be fair. But the average is meaningless when the range is so big. Some people do take 20 hours to learn to drive. Some people do take less. Some people take 100. Some people take more. And because there's such a broad range, that average, that mean average, is kind of meaningless to the individual. So it's not, but the reason why I don't like this is because if you feel like you're letting people down when they come expecting, I'm going to book 20 hours, done. Yeah, I'm going to be passing 20 hours. And you have to be like, it doesn't often work like that. And that's part of the repetitive feature of the job, I suppose, having to explain to people, yeah, that may take that long, but for most people, it generally takes longer. I don't know any instructors who say that they typically get people through their test in 20 hours, although I hear plenty of people say that they've got through their test in 20 hours. I think in the 80s and earlier, people did take a lot less time, but I was in nappies then. I don't know when I was potty trained, probably when I was, 3, 4? I don't even want to think about it. I don't remember back then, and I'm quite glad I don't remember back then, but I don't remember the 80s. I was born in 87. I sort of remember the early 90s onwards, from a time when I could actually use a toilet. Wow, I've just watched that clip back, and that was a bit more of a rant than things I dislike about the job, but I suppose if I dislike them, it's kind of hard not to rant. Let's talk about the positives now, should we? You can take holiday when you want. Okay, one of the negatives, you don't get holiday pay, but at least if you want time off, you don't have to ask anyone. You can take time off. It will cost you money because you won't earn money, but if you want free time, you can have it. Helping people pass. That's a good feeling. When one of my pupils pass, I feel good for the rest of the day. I'd rather them do a test in the morning, because if they pass, I know I've got the whole day to feel good. I rarely feel good the next day. So get it done in the morning, I'm going to feel happy for the rest of the day. And all the years I've been doing it, that has not changed. It's a good feeling. Perks me up, and it puts me in a good mood. Doesn't get old. However, obviously the downside is when people fail, I do generally feel a little bit bad. Not as bad as I do good though, so the upper is better than the downer. The car is included in your wage. So I think I mentioned this earlier. You get your wage, let's say you earn 30,000 a year, just say that. You will be comparatively better off than another job where you're earning 30,000 a year, because you're commuting in your car, it's nothing really, because you don't pay for your car out of your earnings. So let's say I earn 30,000 a year, I get 30,000 a year plus the car. If I didn't have the car, I'd have to use my after-tax wage to then buy one. So there is an advantage about having the car. It's just not necessarily the one you would choose. Oh, and earlier, nothing against Fiestas and Corsas. They're good cars, and really good cars. It's just, if you're a car enthusiast, you don't want to be stuck driving just those. You don't. Do you? You want different flavours. You get to choose who you work with. You could be in a job where you have a real problem with a colleague. They could be offensive. They could even be scary. And the same can be true with a pupil, as I said, in the disadvantages of being a driving instructor. But as a driving instructor, you can choose to not teach them anymore. Whereas if you work as an employee, that's a lot harder. Or if you just work in, office or something with people or anywhere, it's a lot harder to then sort of quit your whole job and move to a different job to avoid that person who's giving you a hard time, than losing one pupil, and if you're busy, being able to replace them quite quickly. So you do get to choose who to work with, so you can have a relatively happy life. You can be around people you get on with, enjoy yourself, you can have a joke and a laugh, and that adds to the lesson. It's not like having a joke and a laugh makes you less productive. It's a job where having a joke actually seems to make you more productive, because when the pupil's happy, they seem to learn better. Whereas in many jobs, I've not done a lot of jobs, to be fair. I've been a driving instructor. I worked for an air conditioning and heating company. I also, before that, worked for a business that gets unemployed people into work by getting them different licenses, like forklift, truck licenses, all that. I wasn't old enough. I was 16 when I did that. Wasn't old enough to do the training, but I worked in the office of that business that did it. Before then, I worked at Boots. I did McDonald's when I was very young. Also worked at a fish and chip shop. And I was a paper boy. When I was 13, 14, I used to deliver papers and squeeze the Sunday morning paper through the letterbox as one of the pages completely rips as it doesn't fit in the letterbox. So yeah, I've not had a huge number of jobs, but I do know what it can be like to be with people who you struggle to be with, and in a job where if you joke or laugh, that's considered bad. Get your head down, get to work. In this, you don't have a boss. That's another advantage. You make your own decisions, and as long as you're within the law and you're helping your pupil, then you're going to be fine. I get to talk about driving. I like driving. I get to talk about cars a bit, not much. I do enjoy talking about cars, but it doesn't really help in this job talking about cars. It is about helping people learn to drive. And a massive advantage is that there's no backlog. In many jobs, you can get like a backlog of things you've got to get done. This is in the moment. You don't, and the phone rings, you don't have to stop what you're doing and answer the phone. No, you don't when you're teaching to drive. You ignore that. That's good. I used to be in a job where I'd pick up the phone, trying to write something, trying to think, oh, the phone rings. That's really frustrating. I can just concentrate on what I'm doing, much more enjoyable. And I forget how much better that is sometimes. I take it for granted. And I'm always finding ways to improve how I do things. A big advantage for me, or it's not an advantage, a pleasure for me is being able to do something I wasn't once able to. So I get a difficult pupil who's quite difficult to teach, and maybe 5 years ago I really struggled to help them or didn't help them. Maybe they went elsewhere because I just wasn't getting them anywhere. But then now I can. I think, oh, this was like that other person, but now I've got tricks and advice. I know how to help this person. It's enjoyable. It's very rewarding. That's the word I want to use. It is a rewarding job. Well, this video took longer than I was expecting. I was thinking quick video, just to explain how much a driving instructor can earn, give a couple of examples and say what it's like, the good and the bad. But it's getting dark outside and this picture's probably getting a little bit grainy, I guess, if it's getting dark. But something else I want to say is I said earlier that you can get some nasty pupils when you deal with the public. And it's true, if you deal with the public, there are every so often some really nasty people you're going to have to deal with. But when I think about it, I've had hundreds of pupils. I don't even know how many hundreds, more than 400 I'm sure. And it's only really a few that were bad that I can think of. Yet my mind focuses on them. So I think it's just part of being human. Sometimes you focus on the bad. So don't worry about it. Most people you get are just fine. Most of them you're going to enjoy teaching. If you think the video helps you have an insight into what it's like to be a driving instructor and how much you can earn based on 36 hours a week, of course, the less hours you do, you earn less money. Quite significantly so actually, because the ratio between what you earn and the cost changes too, because your earnings go down dramatically, but your costs don't drop as quickly. So you are better off doing more hours. If you think this video does help you though, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to get my future videos. And until the next one, cheerio.